I can start?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Divam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrkshabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripasandubhya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Setarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, Text 12. I'll share my screen for the text. The Sanskrit, I'll read first. One moment. Kovirshat tava padam strin sarebhya chatuspada mabhuvam stvatrasta rashtre ragnam krishnanu. I'll read one more time. Kovirshat tava padam strin sarebhya chatuspada mabhuvam stvatrasta rashtre ragnam krishnanu. The word-for-word translation. Ka, who is he? Avarshat, cut off. Tava, your. Padan, legs. Trin, 3. Saurabhya, O son of Suravi. Chatupada, you are four-legged. Ma, never to be. Uvan, it so happened. Padrshta, as yourself. Rastre, in the states. Ragnam, of the kings. Krishna Anuvartinam, those who follow the codes of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. He, Maharaj Parikshit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus, O son of Surabi, who has cut off your 3 legs, in the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. Report by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. The king or the executive heads of all states must know the codes of Lord Krishna, generally Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and must act accordingly in order to fulfill the mission of human life, which is to make an end to all miseries of material conditions. One who knows the codes of Lord Krishna can achieve this end without any difficulty. In the Bhagavad Gita, in a synopsis, we can understand the codes of Godhead, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the same codes are explained further. In a state where the codes of Krishna are followed, no one is unhappy. Where such codes are not followed, the first sign is that 3 legs of the representative of religion are cut off, and thereby all miseries follow. When Krishna was personally present, the codes of Krishna were being followed without question. But in his absence, such codes are presented in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam for the guidance of the blind persons who happen to be at the helm of all affairs. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of the Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like the desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thank you, everyone, again, and good morning. Thank you for having me here to speak once again and share the bit that I was able to learn. This verse is a little shorter than the one I had last time, so I had to do a little more searching on some things that were taken previously and some things to come, but try not to get too far ahead of where we're at here, and try to focus on the few things that are actually specific to this verse alone. And the things that stood out is here that we are given an emphasis on the importance of the kings, and with the Rashtre Ragnam, that's in the state of the kings. And the kings back in the Vedic times, those were the ones who are in charge of the happiness for the kingdom, whereas sometimes when maybe in history class for school, when we hear of kings, they maybe get a kind of not so an honorable personality, but back in the Vedic era, they were very honorable. They were kshatriyas, they were warriors. They would go out on the battlefield themselves. And not only are they honorable and very noble kings, but they are also the kings who follow the codes of Krishna, is here emphasized, the Krishna Anuvartinam. And this is used explicitly to declare that the kings are responsible and following these codes that we are given in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And part of the purport here, we can see in the very beginning that whoever follows these codes and is able to be happy. And then Maharaj Parikshit is asking the bull, or telling the bull, there is no one as unhappy as you. And because this bull is unhappy, then we can conclude that somehow someone was not following these codes of Krishna, and that is bringing unhappiness. And then otherwise, outside of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's also the Manu Smriti, which is one of the law books that give a fairly clear definition of pious and sinful activities. And why that's relevant to this verse is because the Manu, the king who had he was an authorized line of the kings, and he was empowered by Vishnu, empowered by Krishna through his Vishnu forms. And so he fits into the line of kings, just like Maharaj Parikshit, and created this law book and to further help the people for pious and sinful activities. And when we have these law books, one could ask themselves that why can't we just follow these codes and then not necessarily follow a life of service or devotion? Just do what's right and avoid what's wrong, and then still be happy. Because that's basically what most people are looking for in life, is just to live a life of happiness. And then one could describe this as the Varnashrama system and take this according to scriptures and then hope that one can be happy. But the problem with that is when someone takes just these few systems and let's say instills the Varnashrama system, and then the important factor remains that the purpose of the Vedas and the Srimad Bhagavatam is not only to follow this system, but it's to ultimately establish love of Godhead through worship of Krishna. Everyone should worship Krishna and ultimately establish love of Godhead. And in this purport here, it's written as the kings or the executive heads of all states must know the codes of Krishna and must act accordingly in order to fulfill the mission of human life, which is to make an end of all miseries of material conditions. And in this case, the Mayavadi or maybe the Buddhists, for example, could take this small portion and say, well, all I want to do is end these miserable conditions of life and not take into account the rest of the Vedas. And in the Bhagavatam, as an example, the entire 10th canto is dedicated to glorifying Krishna by describing his pastimes. And the whole picture is necessary in these individual things. They won't ultimately bring happiness, but temporarily possibly, because the big picture is not being taken into account. So to go a little further in the verse is the beyond the kings onto the bull. Maharaj Parikshit questions the bull who has cut off your three legs. And in the age of the Satya Yuga, I believe, the bull represents Dharma, and the four legs of the bull are representative of the principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And the bull now only has one leg left, and this is further elaborated in the further verse, so I won't try to get too much into it. But that one leg left is truthfulness. Truthfulness. That's the one leg that's left that we have in this Kali Yuga to some degree. And this is due to the rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. So here we have the analogy for the bull's legs representing the four main principles to be followed in order to live a life in the mode of goodness. And then when we take this picture of the bull being beaten by Shudra and the king showing up, if we just look at this in on a material level and take that just very straightforward without any kind of analogies or mythologies, we still have a very like dark picture, a very striking image of violence against these animals where this person's beating the bull and has cut off the legs, and there's no apparent, or regardless, there is not going to be a good reason for that. And this in itself is horrible without using the analogies or what the bull should represent. But if we do take it on the level of Dharma, some of the main things that we can take from that, what we ought to prevent is violence and suffering. And this isn't only on the human level for people, but also on the animal level, that is also very important to live harmoniously and peacefully and develop bhakti. So, and well, even not for bhakti, just for humans in general, rather. And to take an example, this is also elsewhere in other religions. For example, in the Bible, we have the commandment that thou shalt not kill. And oftentimes I've read through some explanations of that commandment, and very elaborately individuals have tried to declare like why that doesn't necessarily pertain or doesn't pertain to animals. And um by any rate, it didn't seem very convincing to me. And I liked how Srila Prabhupada, how I've read, he said it very simply that, well, if they wanted to mean only humans, then the commandment would just simply be thou shalt not murder rather than thou shalt not kill. And so it would have been very simple for Moses to say it that way, or Jesus later also to say it that way. So um, to take this maybe on a perspective to not only for devotees but as a society, um, like one of the questions would be how can we help others in society to um, you know, prevent this violence against humans and on the animal level, and stop this killing of animals and meat eating. And back here in the scriptures, we would have the kings like Maharaj Parikshit who would take this upon themselves. They hear about one person in the kingdom doing something wrong, and then they go ahead and take care of that. Back then, they would just immediately kill them. And um, nowadays, we can't so much do that. And then also in society, we probably have more individuals that eat meat than don't. And but that's just because the majority partake in something doesn't mean it's still wrong. And it's an important factor to how to get individuals to understand that. Because for me as well, um, I don't think I was ever necessarily extremely comfortable with eating meat. If I had been a child and then someone had explained to me in simple manners, or if my parents wouldn't do it, I would have accepted very simply. It just seemed like something, as soon as it was explained to me, um, I guess in a rational manner, it was very simple to accept that it's not a good thing. And um, I suppose I was just doing it because the majority were taking place in it. So to get some notes here on this lesson, I listened to a lecture with H. Banu Swami, and he was writing, speaking about the League of Nations that was established maybe a century ago. And I believe that was written in the Lilamrita too. Prabhupada had spoken about it, and they wrote that in there. That despite this League of Nations, there's still World War II still happened, and then the United Nations came along, and then and then constant wars still are happening all throughout the world on a continued basis. And despite this collection of nations, one could say the most influential, some call them powerful, and despite that, they have simply no effect on this violence and the wars that happen. And um, His Holiness Banu Swami point out he's in Australia, or at least during this lecture, and at the Krishna farm there, they had a quote that he says that they have hanging on their wall, and one of them and was from Tolstoy, which led me to reading a few from Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. If anyone isn't familiar with them, maybe if I have a moment, I can read a few. But they're early 20th century um, philosophers or authors from the then Soviet Union. Anyways, on the wall there, they have a sign. I guess he was saying that it says, "As long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be war." And further, he says, if he really and seriously seeking to live a good life, the first thing from which he will abstain will always be the use of animal food, because its use is simply immoral, as it involves the performance of an act which is contrary to the moral feeling, killing. A man can live and be healthy without killing animals for food. Therefore, if he eats meat, he participates in taking animal life merely for the sake of his appetite. And this seems very, very much in line in the teachings of what Srila Prabhupada tells us. And so it's actually nice that they have that on the wall there. And one of the first things that we can do is refrain from meat eating in order to lead a life in the mode of goodness. And um, interestingly, that a lot of people that are meat eating, they would probably agree with that statement or the quotes that it's for the sake of appetite and it's not necessary. But unfortunately, we've been so removed from our food in modern society that we don't even realize barely what the source is, where it came from, the work that's been put into it. And that just appears to me like one of those many, I guess, nifty tricks of Maya or the Kali Yuga. And there comes the quote to mind, this ignorance is bliss. And looking into the Kali Yuga and Maya, I found this little family tree of Maya, which was interesting, and just wanted to read it. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, but it is. I'll just say the English names for ease of hearing of the family members. It's Illusion was one of the wives of Lord Vishnu, and this is the genealogy as given in the Agni Purana. And it's violence, married, foul deeds. They had two children, lack of action and dishonesty. These two children in turn produced four children, fear, hell, illusion, which is Maya, and pain. Maya, or illusion, begot death, and pain begot sorrow. Death produced four children, disease, old age, sorrow, and anger. So that's a pretty intensive line of names, and this family working together during the Kali Yuga and could be pretty tough to be up against. And as His Holiness Banu Swami was saying, that there's no political means to counteract Maya, but the only thing we have is a spiritual one. And the three specific causes of irreligion during the Kali Yuga are smaya, pride; sangha, too much association with women; and madai, which is intoxication. And then notably, the bull during Dharma has one leg left standing to a degree, which is out also still beaten. And that leg that's left is truthfulness. And throughout the Yuga cycles, the Satya, Treta, Dvapara, the four legs increasingly become absent. And the other three that were previously there are Daya, Tapa, and Saukam, which are mercy, austerity, and cleanliness. So besides these non-violence, non-killing, of course, in the Bhagavatam, we are given the strength of the holy name as one of the main tools to cleanse ourselves and live a life of goodness and to purify ourselves. And that one, that's several classes on its own that we could have. Just for purposes of this verse, I think the main points are truthfulness and nonviolence. Truthfulness represented through the last leg of the bull or dharma, left standing, and the violence committed against the bull, where Maharaj Parikshit is intervening immediately. Those are the two main principles that I've collected that are standing out to me in this verse that we ought to follow. And those should help us live harmoniously in the mode of goodness within the material world and within that during the age of Kali. Almost at time here. So I'll leave just a moment if anyone has any comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam, all glories
Hare
to
Krishna,
Srila Prabhu.
Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I really, I was just hearing the way you are speaking. It's such a nice clarity on what you spoke, Prabhu. Actually, so many things came up. And, in spite of hearing, I was thinking, in spite of hearing every day, still we commit mistakes, still we do some things, right?
Yes.
So that's the how much reminders you keep us. I don't know. Our human tendency is very, very bad. I don't know what to do with that, right, bro? I was thinking, it's not that me or you, in general, the tendency is there. It's very difficult to come out. That's why Maya is very powerful. Until we, I think you've also brought a very nice point that rules and regulations of Manu, etc., everything is there, but the most important is the love Krishna. So when do no? Also, we were thinking, when do I get that love for Krishna? Because when we all get love for Krishna, all this will go away automatically. There is no auto, if I say automatically, unless we strive for it. But
Yes.
we can say simply, yeah, it's very simple for a simple one, but complicated for complicated. But it also says, I feel sometimes, even if you have a simple heart, people who are complicate us. You know what I mean? So
yes.
So that's why we have to be very careful to be simple. And then whatever people say, doesn't matter. Stick on to the principles, stick on to the Guru's instructions. In that way, we can keep following every day and make our life successful, at least for our satisfaction. It's not other satisfaction, it's our own satisfaction. That how do you remember the way Gopal Hari Prabhu was telling the other day in the Janmashtami class, how wherever you go, you won't find happiness. The only happiness is with Krishna, loving Krishna.
Yes.
If he makes us dance, yes, better dance rather than doing anything else. So anyway, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Just for information, His Holiness Banu Swami Maharaj is from Chennai. He is actually a resident of Chennai in India, South India.
Oh, great, yes.
He's one of the scholars. And in fact, when I first time installed my deities of Gaur Nitai, His Holiness Banu Swami is the one who made Abhishek for the deities 20 years ago.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
he's is a high scholar, very nice, very simple. In spite of GPC asked him to take up the initiating spiritual master, he did not agree. I don't know why, but he's strong in his own way. And he's also a great astrologer.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Yeah, what you were just saying, that remind me of one of the other quotes that one of those two had written, and it is, learning to love is hard, and we pay dearly for it. It takes hard work and a long apprenticeship, for it is not for a moment that we must learn to love, but forever. And then another one, and then I'll close out unless someone else has one. It's these two that I liked, since he got me to looking into these. It's just as one candle lights another and can light thousands of other candles, so one heart illuminates another heart and can illuminate thousands of others. That's all we have. I think
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha kalpatarubhashta kirpa sindhubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo